It started with a promise. Everybody knows a pinky promise should never be broken. Cheese Sandwich had always traveled nearly all of Equestria, spreading his love for parties to mundane lives of the ponies he had met. With his faithful assistant Boneless #2 at his side, he journeyed along the less traveled road, following nothing but his instincts. It wasn't too much of a surprise for Cheese when he found himself on the path to Ponyville. Since his encounter with Pinkie Pie at Rainbow Dash's birth anniversary, that little pink pony had stayed on his mind. It was uncanny on how much she reminded him of himself. Her mannerisms echoed on its own. It only made sense when he'd been drawn to her. There was, however, one distinct difference between them, a difference that monumental enough that he was sure that he could never truly understand. When Cheese approached the bright and inviting bakery known as Sugar Cube Corner, he had heard the unmistakable sound of Pinkie Pie's voice. He noted, however, that her intonation seemed different. "That's what happens," Pinkie Pie said, followed by a squelching sound. "When you break, more squelching. Sounds like a pinky promise." Cheese ignored the closed sign on the door and poked his head inside curiously. He saw Pinkie crouched down behind the counter, struggling with something just out of sight. He also noticed the absence of curl in her mane and long tail, along with the unmistakable splatter of blood on her fur. Pinkie's head shot up at the sound of his entrance, and he saw a flicker of something dark in her eyes. When she saw him, her entire demeanor changed. She gasped in delight, her mane and tail bouncing to life, as if a wide smile graced her adorable little cheeks. "Cheese Sandwich!" she squealed, racing to see him with a hug tackle. When she finally released him, she saw the curious expression on his face. She looked down at herself and noted the splotches of crimson on her pink coat. She giggled apologetically. "Oops, looks like you caught me working on red velvet cupcakes. Just give me 1 second and I'll be right with you." Pinkie hummed to herself as she bounced back across the room and behind the counter. She ducked out of sight, and Cheese heard a little grunts of frustration as she attempted to move something. "Need help?" he asked. I got it," Pinkie said, grunting as she spoke. Her back legs were digging into the ground furiously, failing to propel her forward. He had heard her mutter something under her breath, something about laying off the cupcakes once in a while. Cheese smiled, undeterred by her insistence, and approached. "Wait!" Pinkie screamed, jumping up and holding out her hooves. However, despite her efforts, Cheese could clearly see the unmistakable outline of a yellow Pegasus pony drenched in its own blood, lifeless on the floor. "Aw, but I really liked you," Pinkie said, her lip trembling. "I was hoping you wouldn't have to see this. I could spare you from meeting your own "You did this kind of stuff too?" Cheese exclaimed happily. Cheese's declaration caused Pinkie's eyes to widen in both wonder and confusion. "I thought I was the only one. This is wonderful," Cheese said, laughing as he joined her behind the counter. Was all she could say, as Cheese examined how lifeless Pony was at her hooves. Where were you taking her?" he asked. Pinkie beamed again, just as brightly as she had when she first arrived. "And then I said, you told me to come exactly 2 o'clock, remember? And she was like, but I had to save you these icky little mice from something or another, and I couldn't make it. Normally I wouldn't have to mind one itsy bitsy teeny weeny, but she was the one who used the words pinky promise. I didn't tell her to say that, but she did, and I'm not the only one who makes the rules here. A pinky promise is the one most ultimate promises I've ever," Pinkie Pie said, as she sipped her vanilla shake through a Swizzy straw. "Well, that makes sense," Cheese Sandwich said with a smile. Pinkie blushed and hid her face from her mane. Cheese Sandwich returned the blush with one of his own. There was a small awkward silence between them. "I'm gonna miss her, though. She was a great friend. Sad to see her go. And you're absolutely positive sure that this won't bother you?" Pinkie asked, looking for any signs of weakness within him. She certainly didn't want to have to kill him, but she would if she had needed to. Bother me? Why would this bother me? He asked with a laugh. I know exactly what you mean. How so? Pinky asked. Well, you've seen my parties. Your amazing, spectacular ones? Don't forget epic. Of course not. Not every pony appreciates all of my hard work, Cheese said, his tone of voice changing. Pinky gasped in astonishment. Who wouldn't like to see a cheese sandwich party? Some ponies claim my parties are too wild or too fun. Can you believe it? Too fun? Then there's those who try to take credit for the parties I planned. Or worse, they forget I'm even there. Pinky reached out a hoof and smiled reassuringly. So, when they really get what's coming, she said, finishing his thought. Well, no pony likes a party pooper, do they? Cheese said, the familiar bright tone returning to his voice. Nope, 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 Pinky said. The two of them made a delighted little giggles of joy until the timer on the oven dinged. Ooh, looks like the goodies are done, Pinky said. And no pony suspects the wonderfully unique flavor of your cupcakes? Cheese asked. No, silly. And why would they? I've been making these cupcakes for quite some time now. The flavor might change a bit from pony to pony, but the recipe stays the same, Pinky said. She brought the newly baked cupcakes out onto the counter and gingerly placed them on a cooling rack. Cheese smiled and inhaled their delicious scent. Want one? Pinky asked, offering him a goldenly warm bite. Cheese gobbled the whole cupcake, delighting on the taste that Pinky called meat. I sure would love to watch you work. Besides making these crazy cupcakes, he said with a smile. Well, Pinky said, trailing off a bit as she headed for the frosting, there are a few errands I have to run after I'm done here. Maybe I could show you my technique, as long as you show me yours, of course. It's a date, Cheese exclaimed. But it can't be just any pony, Pinky clarified. Of course not, Cheese echoed. We'll have to find the right pony. Maybe some pony in town comes to mind, he asked. While his killings hadn't been random in the past, Cheese had the urge to show her his skills. After all, she was certainly the mare of his dreams and his nightmares. I might have an idea or two, Pinky said, expertly lacing the frosting around one of the cupcakes. There you are, darling, Rarity said, as she had done as Pinky had asked her and filled her spatula with gems. And you say this is for a new recipe? Oh yeah, it's quite crucial to the preparation, you see, Pinky said with a smile. Cheese Sandwich was watching her curiously, trying to figure out what she had in mind. If you say so, Rarity said, making a mental note to inspect every future treats for her remnants of rock. You're so delightfully random, Pinkie Pie, Cheese said as they left the boutique. Just as you wait and see what I have planned, Pinky exclaimed with glee. I bet you'll never seen a pony go out like this, she said, bouncing at his side for a moment before he joined her. Betcha I can bounce higher, Cheese challenged. Nuh-uh, Pinky said, laughing. I was a bouncy house champion for 3 years running. And who do you think took that title away from you, huh? Aw, I'd let you win. Uh-huh, Pinky said with a wink. Oh, heya, Pinkie Pie, Apple Bloom said. Pinky and Cheese halted their bouncing to greet the little filly. Apple Bloom looked at Cheese Sandwich in confusion. And, Cheese Sandwich, Pinky said. You remember he threw that awesomely terrific party for Rainbow Dash. Oh, but I thought you did that, Apple Bloom said, confused. The lack of recognition caused Cheese Sandwich's eyes to twitch. His mane and tail made a soft deflating sound as they straightened, much the same way Pinky's did when she was sad or angry. Pinky saw the hint of anger in him that might lead him into making Apple Bloom pie and carefully blocked his path. No, silly. This was all Cheese's idea, Apple Bloom. He is one of the best party ponies ever. Oh yeah, I remember you. You had the goof off with Pinkie Pie. Wait, you were the pony that threw the best party ever? I can't remember the last time I had that much fun. The Crusaders and I won all kinds of prizes, and we went on all the rides too, Apple Bloom said, laying up her recollection of the event. Hearing this caused Cheese's demeanor to change. He smiled as his mane bounced back to life, as if nothing had happened. I'm glad you liked it. It was a pretty good one, wasn't it? Yes, indeedly, Pinky agreed. Well, best be going. Granny needs me. See you all later, Pinkie Pie, and see you later, Apple Bloom blushed, trying to recall his name. Cheese Sandwich, Pinkie and Cheese exclaimed together. Ah, right, knew that, Apple Bloom said before making a speedy exit. Cheese watched Apple Bloom scamper away with a glare. She's not the right pony, Pinkie said through his thoughts. Why not? Cheese asked, slightly disappointed. Well, she's one of my best friend's little sisters, and you can't just go killing your friend's little sisters, unless she breaks a pinky promise, Pinkie said. Cheese bit his lips. The last thing he wanted to do was disappoint Pinkie. This was how they would say her party, after all. Alright then, where's this pony you had in mind? He asked, finding it difficult to hold back his enthusiasm. You'll see, Mr. Impatient Pants. She should be just ahead, Pinkie said, resuming her delightful bounce along Ponyville's dirt road. The schoolhouse? Cheese Sandwich asked. So it is a filly after all? Not just a filly, she's the meaniest of all fillies. I've had my eye on her for a while now, but I never really had the reason to pay her a visit. At least not till today. Cheese beamed and followed her after Pinkie. He watched a scapful of gems bouncing along with her, making a little tinkling sounds as they collided with each other. Just what was this pony up to? Pinkie Pie led Cheese up the small hill to the schoolhouse, but not just the front door. She held out a hoof to stop Cheese in his tracks and whispered a quiet shh. Following her lead, Pinkie and Cheese crept behind the building and peeked their heads up just enough to look inside. There was a little group of fillies inside fussing over what appeared to be a school newspaper. But there was one pony in particular that caught both of their attention. No, 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 Diamond Tiara screamed, stamping her hoof. You're missing the point. Ponies don't want to read about that of Equestria games. We want this and want that boring. We want to read about Princess Twilight's dragon friend and his embarrassing display of... Diamond Tiara was interrupted by the sound of the schoolhouse bell, signaling the hour. All the other fillies sighed in gratitude, elated that they could get away from Diamond Tiara and her oppressive nature. I want every pony back here by dawn tomorrow. This paper's not going anywhere until we have a decent story, Diamond Tiara said. She stuck her nose in the air and stomped her way towards the back door. Pinkie and Cheese quickly lowered their heads, and Pinkie began rummaging through her backpack. As she did so, a quiet but creepy little laugh escaped from her lips as her mane began to deflate. She pulled out a plain burlap sack and a rolling pin from under the pile of jewels that Rarity had generously donated to her special recipe. Pinkie passed the rolling pin to Cheese, knowing that he didn't need to be told what to do with it. When he took it in his mouth, his mane also deflated, and he returned her sinister smile. His heart skipped a beat, watching her creep into position, waiting for the other side of the door for the little prey to make her exit. Diamond Tiara shoved open the door and stomped down the steps with her nose in the air. Cheese couldn't contain his excitement any longer as he let out a delightfully wicked giggle as he bashed the pony's head from behind, knocking her unconscious. Pinkie carefully dragged her off to the side and ducked out of sight. You do it, Pinkie exclaimed. No, you do it, Cheese answered. But you're super excited, Pinkie said, nuzzling him gently and causing a gigantic blush to appear on his face. But it's your brilliant plan, and I've got to see you execute it, Cheese said. You mean execute her, Pinkie said, laughing at her own joke. Cheese joined in soon after. Where am I? Diamond Tiara asked. She went to put her hoof to her head, but found she was unable to move. Her eyes widened when she saw the terrifying basement she was being held captive. She struggled against the old-looking chair that had restraints bound tightly to her hooves. Pinkie Pie, what are you doing? Let me go, you insane pink pony! Don't you ever call her that! Cheese Sandwich roared angrily, mere inches from the filly's face. Who are you? Diamond Tiara asked. Her voice cracked in fear, although she tried to remain bold. Ooh, you shouldn't have said that, Pinkie giggled from behind them. Cheese really doesn't like it when ponies don't recognize him. She joined his side and lovingly nuzzled his cheek as he began his unblinking glare on Diamond Tiara. He softened a little at her presence, but kept his wicked grin. And you sure you don't want to go first? Pinky asked. No, mare's first, Cheese said, stepping out of her way. What do you want to do with me? Let me go. My father is going to hear about this. He'll run to you. Do you hear him? He'll ruin you. Do you hear me? You'll never work in this town again. Diamond Tiara was cut off when Pinkie Pie suddenly produced an emerald and shoved it in the filly's mouth. Diamond Tiara gasped in confusion and spat out immediately, trying to get the taste off her tongue. I hear you have expensive taste, Diamond Tiara, Pinkie said, gently retrieving the emerald and playing with it in her hooves. I also hear you have quite a mouth, one that tends to make other ponies upset. Pinkie grabbed the ruby from the little pile of gems on the table beside Diamond Tiara and pushed that one in her mouth. This time, however, she kept her hoof over Diamond Tiara's mouth so that she wouldn't speak and couldn't spit it out. Diamond Tiara thrashed around in confusion, making it difficult for Pinkie to keep it on hold. Cheese Sandwich happily came to the aid, holding the filly's young head still. Thank you, Pinkie said with a smile. Anytime, Cheese replied. As I was saying, I figured it was about time some pony washed that mouth with soap for all those nasty little remarks you made about other ponies. But then I remembered you probably are too high and mighty for something as common as soap. Maybe you prefer if we wash your mouth out with gems instead, Pinkie said, grabbing a hoof full of jewels. There's one jewel for every pony you have ever teased. Glee, I hope you can handle them all. Diamond Tiara had a look of absolute confusion and terror imprinted on her face. She whimpered and thrashed against Cheese's grip. You've already got one. We'll say that one is Apple Bloom, and there's Scootaloo. Pinkie tried to force a second gem in the pony's mouth, but she clamped her mouth shut tighter. That's cheating, silly, Pinkie said, plugging her nose until Diamond Tiara opened her mouth to gasp for air. And there's Sweetie Belle and Featherweight. Cheese watched Pinkie in adoration. Not only did she lose delightfully twisted happy attitude of hers, snips, nails, Pinkie continued. Diamond Tiara screamed and cried in pain, although it was muffled by the gemstones, blocking her windpipe. She gagged, desperately clinging to the small passage of air that she had left. Pinkie Pie leaned in close and cocked her head to the side, examining the filly. And I don't think you can handle much more without swallowing. Guess you shouldn't have bullied so many ponies, she said. Diamond Tiara made a soft gurgle whimpering sound, thrashing her head in Cheese's hooves. Tears soaked her cheeks as she looked up at Pinkie Pie pleadingly. Oh, don't worry. You don't have to say it. I think I already know, Pinkie said. She rapidly moved away from her position in front of Diamond Tiara to stand beside her instead. Pinkie pushed her face up against the filly's head and pretended to speak on her behalf. But I'm good now. I don't bully ponies anymore. Just ask all the colts and fillies at school, Pinkie said mockingly. Pinkie switched places again, resuming her position in front of Diamond Tiara to respond. You know, just because some pony says they're sorry doesn't mean it makes all the ouchy feelings go away. So now you're just gonna have to feel some ouchy things yourself. It's only fair. Pinkie Pie took a hold of Diamond Tiara's snout and pulled it apart as much as she was able to. Diamond Tiara screamed out, her tears cascading down her cheeks as Pinkie forced another gemstone past her lips. It turned out to be one too many gemstones for the filly's cheeks to handle. With nowhere to go, the gems slipped slowly down her throat, and their sharp edges sliced open her flesh. Stream of blood that caused ultimately prevented air to Diamond Tiara's lungs. She gargled, her cheeks and neck protruding with the gems they held. You know what I just fought off, Cheese Sandwich? Pinkie said, meeting his gaze. What's that? These little beauties will actually tenderize the meat as they go down, Pinkie giggled. Streaks of red filled Diamond Tiara's watery eyes, and now the fit of giggles that followed Pinkie's joke were the last things Diamond Tiara heard before she slipped away. Pinkie hummed a little tune as she merely cleaned up the remains of her fun with Diamond Tiara. Now it's your turn, she said happily, scrubbing the blood off the chair floor. My turn, huh? Do I get to pick the pony? Cheese asked excitedly. Pinkie took hold of one torture instruments and a pair of pliers and plopped them on the head with them. No, killing Apple Bloom, she said. Aw, but... No. Fine, Cheese grumbled. Pinky ascended the stairs with Cheese following close behind. How am I supposed to know who I can and can't kill? Don't worry, I'll show you, Pinky exclaimed happily. It'll be nice to clean up Ponyville of all those meanies. She carefully locked the door to the basement and pushed the shelves of cakes in the way to conceal it. What are you waiting for? Cheese asked happily, racing to the door. Don't you need supplies? Pinky wondered. Oh, I always have my supplies with me, Cheese said with a smirk. The pair of ponies strolled down to the Ponyville main square, singing a song along their conquests to come and fill the attraction they felt for one another. Cheese took mental notes of the ponies they passed. He nodded his head in their direction, but Pinky rejected him each time. Rose, no, she's so sweet. Lyra, no, she's obsessed with humans, and it's kind of fun to hear her crazy stories. Rainbow Dash, no, okay, maybe, Pinky said. Cheese laughed for a moment, then stopped in his tracks. His eyes grew wide and his face grew dark, and his hair deflated. Him, he growled, pointing to the stallion buying tomatoes from a nearby cart. Pokey Pierce? Pinky asked, but why? Can I? Cheese asked, through his clenched teeth. Okay, Pinky said. Although she was indeed curious to know the origin of such an unbridled anger, she followed Cheese to watch him work for what she considered a safe distance. Hey, a friend, Cheese said as he poked his head up from behind him. Pokey gasped and took a few steps back in shock while Cheese maneuvered to stand in front of him. Do you like balloons? Cheese asked, closing in on him. Pokey Pierce said, backing into a crate of oranges. Sure. Good, Cheese declared. Because as I recall, you have quite a history with balloons, don't ya, big boy? I do? Pokey asked nervously. Sure you do. It wasn't too long ago that you wandered into some pony's party preparation. As I recall, you were quite a quiver over my grand display of balloons. It's too bad no pony else got to see them since your horn just so happened to pop them, Cheese said, his voice growing more sinister and upset as he continued along. How is it a unicorn like you managed to pop so much of some ponies else's hard work, huh? That makes it a lot of effort. Let's see if you can do it again, my friend. You better pop them all for your own sake. Just as Pinkie Pie managed to do on numerous occasions before, Cheese pulled from nowhere a hoop full of inflated balloons. He blew them up and tied them off so quickly that it was beginning to draw a crowd. In a matter of minutes, the entire street was covered with balloons that were stacked 2 ponies high. With so many around, it made it impossible for one pony to see another in the chaos. Pinkie pushed away through her sea of balloons, looking at Cheese, and when she found him, she smiled, thoroughly impressed by the work. In confusion, Cheese had blown a balloon and tied it around Pokey Pierce's neck. Additionally, dozens of unused balloons had been stretched around Pokey's hooves, binding them together and rendering them useless to assist him. He was gasping for air, trying desperately to pop the balloon with stifled magic from his unicorn horn. Oh, there's really no need for all that, Cheese said as he admired his own work. Kinda hard to do magic when you're suffocating, isn't it? It's also kinda hard to ruin some pony else's hard work without that pesky horn of yours getting in the way. Clock's ticking, you know. I'm willing to bet those little lungs of yours will pop before the balloons do. Pinkie giggled in delight and joined Cheese. Wow, I would never seen this one coming, she declared. In broad daylight, too. Top that, Pink Cute Pie. Pinkie, Cheese said with a wink. Pinkie let out a little squeak as they watched the stallion plead for mercy. Only a few moments later, Pokey gasped his last breath. But we'll have to deduct points because I have already killed by suffocation. Not too creative, Cheesy. Aw, shoot, I'll impress you yet, Cheese said. It took some doing, but the ponies in town squares popped or magicked the sea of balloons away. By the time they were gone, Pinkie, Cheese, and Pokey had vanished. Cheese and Pinkie were nuzzled onto a park bench, watching the sun set on their perfect day of mayhem. Hey, Cheese, Pinkie said, looking up at him. Yeah? This was the most splendorific time of all of our first dates and history of our first dating, she declared. I was hoping you'd say that, Cheese Sandwich said with a blush. But maybe next time we could tone it down a bit. I mean, I love a good barbecue bonfire as much as the next pony, but I do have to live here, you know, Pinkie said. She looked over the beautiful blaze coming from the green Pegasus pony who had been set alight. It was rather humorous to watch him fly around frantically until he didn't have the strength. Instead, he would roll on the ground in effort to douse the flame. I figured this would save you a step. You won't have to bake this one into a cupcake. Just gotta get some frosting, that's all, Cheese said with a smile. Ooh, and he looks like he'll be good with a cherry on top, Pinky declared. Cheese smiled and surprised his little murdering fiend with his kiss. Pinky closed her eyes and enjoyed the moment until she heard an unwelcome sound. Minnie? A pink pony screamed, looking around charred remains of a Pegasus on the ground. No, Minnie! Oh my god, please no! Pinky let out an exasperated sigh and pulled away from Cheese. She bounced towards the panicking mare, gracefully snapped her neck and bounced back. Much better, she sang, before giving him a little peck on the cheek. Before Cheese had a chance to respond, Pinky gasped and sat up quickly, saying, Should we throw a party? Of course, Cheese agreed. So we can get rid of all the evidence and have a super great time with your friends, Cheese finished. Yes, Pinky said. How else will we get used to all these ingredients, before they go bad? Ooh, we can serve a little Miss Fussy Pants to her daddy. Won't that be fun? You are delightful, said Cheese, blowing a tuft of hair from her eyes. And I, Pinky, promise to make this party the best party ever. You better, or you know the consequences, Pinky said. The hair of them snuggled and giggled to the night.
What's up, my pretties? It's the Lion Queen here. I want to appreciate you all for tuning into this video, and I do appreciate you guys supporting my video by giving this video likes and stuff. If you really enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you're new, ring the bell for notifications to when I upload so that way you guys will get updated for whenever I upload. If you want to follow me on Twitter or DeviantArt, feel free to leave a follow on those if you are interested in following me on those socials. If you want to support my backup channel, known as Miss Dark Shigo, feel free to subscribe to it, as a link to that will also be in the About page section. And with that being said, and that being the case, thank you so much for watching, my pretties, and as always, stay pretty.